LeBron couldn't even stay in Ohio.
All right, so back on our thoughts about Ice
Who
and
the fuck
Fire
still
Con.
uses a payphone? No one, the Cleveland Tourism Board video?
What the fuck?
Not familiar.
Hello and welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrave. Today we are going to be talking about Ice and Fire Con. A bunch of us were there this past weekend and we want to talk about and say how much we loved it. Today I'm joined by...
Hey, this is Zach, also known as Alias on the forums.
John, also known as Eigenvector on the forums.
G'day, this is Duncan, also known as Valkyrist on the forums. Very excited to talk about my first ever Ice and Fire Con.
Yay.
And I'm Adam, Jon Snow on the forums.
This is Thomas, FT Ward on the forums, or Tomas.
La la.
Spelling's very...
This is Dan. I'm Witless Chum on the forums.
And Matt, Blue Armor on the forums.
Great. And I'm Casey, Blue-Eyed Queen on the forums. So I thought I would start off with like our overall thoughts. I don't think I'm going to give a rating for for this, but as usual, Ice and Fire Con was pretty freaking awesome. It's one of my favorite times of year to see all of you guys from the podcast that I talk to online for the rest of the year pretty much. And it's, you know, very Game of Thrones filled and super fun. Zach, how did you feel about it this year?
Oh, I hated it. It was terrible. No.
Bucket of brown.
No. Ice and Fire Con is amazing every time, and it was particularly incredible this time. As you said, Casey, it's just so great to hang out with all the people that we have gathered into this community over the years, and to have new people come and get to meet them in person and just to have great times together. And for me, it's so nice to have this moment where we can kind of, at least for me, kind of revitalize my passion and enthusiasm for these books that did bring us together. And it always does that. So it was a great time.
John, how did you feel about it this year?
I actually thought this was the best one yet. I thought the amount of programming that they do now has reached a critical mass that I think is almost perfect. I was busy all the time. I was up till 4:30 in the morning on back-to-back nights. It's watching the episode with everyone was epic. The musical was epic. It's just awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any to compare it to because this is my first one, but I absolutely loved it. I remember like listening to all of the previous recaps that you guys have done and just like getting so jealous because it sounded like such a fun time. And being there, it totally is one of the funnest experiences ever. Like the events are all fun, like all the panels and all the programs and the shows and the board games, like that's all a blast. But like, as you say, Zach, it's just so much fun hanging out with people because like, and meeting all of you guys for the first time. Because like, obviously we've talked a lot over the years on doing particular podcasts, but it's just fun to just hang out, I guess, and just chat about nothing and everything. And yeah, it was a blast. I loved it.
Adam?
Pretty much what Duncan said. Best year ever. First year ever, I guess. Yeah, it was a ton of fun. It was great to put. Well, I guess I already like know like faces to names and all that, but it was great to meet some people in person. You know, we met
Just some people
that I did. Well,
Not everybody.
Others,
Not like
however.
Not everybody.
I mean, it was great to meet like some of the Vassals. Obviously, everyone wasn't there. Is what I meant. And I met some people, you know, from the forums that I didn't even realize were going to be there. And, you know, met people from all over the country. And it was really great. Yeah, there was a lot of programming, a lot to do. I did not realize how much alcohol was involved in Ice and Fire Con. I didn't realize you could just bring it with you everywhere. I should have been more on my drinking game.
Well, you're not supposed to bring it everywhere, but
apparently
why
you
you-
are.
Who's going to stop us?
Why you
It's like
buy a
300
water
of us.
bottle.
We
I
own this
specifically
lodge.
bought.
Well, yeah.
It's a docile riot.
They can get in trouble though, theoretically.
Claimed it by Reddit
Yeah,
Conquest.
if people were
Right, yeah, but-
unruly or anything, which I don't really think happened a whole lot. So I think
But
it was
also
fun.
brown bag rule. That's how it is.
I just kept thinking all the locals and all the staff and just regular hotel attendees just must have thought it was the weirdest thing. Just 300 people dressed up as knights and dragons and just running around drinking and shouting.
Yeah, I mean they are somewhat used to it by now, but yeah.
I mean, I feel like I've only been to one other place for Ice and Fire Con, but I just remember my first year in Roanoke at the Mountain View Lake Lodge that we were at. I think it was like one of the second nights. They were like, "There's demons here. These are devil worshippers."
They're
And they were right.
Ay, Dios mío.
Only those of us who worship Raylor.
Red Raleigh.
Red
yeah.
Raleigh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure something was going on with the bonfire. I'm pretty sure. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Did we say where it was?
Oh shit, no. So Ice and Fire Con has been located at multiple locations, but for the past 2 years and next year it will be located at Deer Park Lodge.
Deer Creek
Deer
State
Deer
Park.
Creek Lodge. Beautiful
Deer Street
Ohio.
land area.
Yeah, it's in
Yeah.
Ohio, Mount Sterling, Ohio. It's basically 45 minutes south of Columbus, Ohio. A lot of people did fly in. I personally drove in.
Can I say Ohio is not the coolest place to tell people you're going on vacation?
Yeah.
Like
Everyone's
people
like,
at work
why?
are like, "Oh, you're finally taking a vacation, man. You need a break." I've been working every weekend since like Halloween. I'm exhausted. And they're like, "Oh, you going to Florida? What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going to Ohio. I'll go into the forest.
I was about to say,
lake."
I tell people like it's a camping trip. I basically explain it like I'm going to a lodge with some friends up in Ohio. Like, that's
exactly
how
what I
explain
said.
it. Yeah.
Some buddies were going on a camping trip to a lodge on a park, a state park or whatever.
I drove up with Greg and Casey and Zach, and I remember we passed Columbus for a second, and Casey pointed it out, and then Greg just says, "No." I was turning, and Greg says, "No, don't bother looking." So that was his assessment of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Flyover country for you East Coasters, I guess.
Obviously, this is not sponsored by the Ohio Park and Tourism.
I mean,
Definitely not.
as a foreigner, I enjoyed all of it because it was all different. But yeah, sounds like you guys don't think much of it.
I mean, I live in the DC area, and so when I told my coworkers I was going on vacation, they're usually used to hearing me say I'm going up to Long Island, to the beaches to go see my boyfriend. But this time I was like, "Oh, Ohio," and they were like, "Why? Why are you going all the way out to the middle of nowhere?" But
and then you got to top it off and be like, "It's for a nerd convention."
Just to make it even less cool, yeah.
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 Well, when I took a tour of the Capitol building, the tour guide said that apparently the most astronauts come from Ohio.
Ooh.
Well, John Glenn does, or
That's
did.
interesting.
But then he threw shade by saying it's because everyone wants to get as far away from Ohio.
Even with the compliment of Ohio,
I know.
Backhanded shade.
I was impressed. And then,
All right, I think Thomas was next.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like this is why Donald Trump's president, but people mock Central, Middle America. But
Okay.
go for it. Whatever.
It was beautiful.
But yes, all the lemon cakes. It was wonderful to meet Adam and Duncan, and I had not met Scott before, and so for me, meeting new people was great. Also, I brought my wife for the first time, and she had a good time and would like to come again next year. So pretty
it was
exciting.
Nice meeting her this time too, although briefly. But yes.
Yeah, she likes to stay in the room and write. But
I couldn't convince the wife to go.
But it's lie to her about Ohio and just convince her. But we don't have kids, so for us it's easier to get away.
Honestly, I had no idea you brought your wife. It's alright. I also didn't recognize Adam for about the first 4.
Yeah, I didn't recognize Adam. I felt bad. I did not recognize Adam right away.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, when I met Paul, Zach.
Yeah.
Sorry, go
Same
on.
person.
Until he posted a picture like of us in the Skype chat. Then I looked over and be like, oh, that's Adam.
It was funny because we have all of these Skype chats that we chat on, and I looked down at one point and I saw Adam typing, and I looked over 2 seats and I saw him on his phone. So it's like kind of like worlds colliding.
Inception.
Yeah.
All right, I think Dan's next.
I am next. The Midwest is better than all of you motherfuckers.
Yeah.
By the way,
This is slander for
FYI.
sure.
Stay out of it. We're fine without you.
I said I liked it.
I'm reluctant to defend Ohio, being from Michigan, but
Well, one of the highlights was going back from the con and getting stuck in traffic and turning on the radio and getting this religious diatribe about I can't remember the sentence, but it was like a poison emanating from the left.
oh man,
it was awesome.
By the way, where the hell did you guys get stuck in traffic? Because I didn't hit any traffic on the
It
way
was south of Pittsburgh on, I think it was 97.
Oh, Jesus, you were way up north.
Or no, maybe 79, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say it's 97, but yeah, that makes more sense.
Okay. I guess, I did hit 79 for a little bit, but...
It was great when, like, we were driving down and, like, we were stopped there, and then all of a sudden my navigation system said, the road you're on is closed.
Abandoned.
You're like, fuck you!
Abandoned ship.
Yeah. All right, Matt, your turn.
All right, Dan, you didn't want to say anything else?
Oh yeah, should I talk about the con?
as the longest standing member of all of us.
No, this was I think John kind of hit it on the head. Like this year they actually had so much programming that you really couldn't get to everything. So it's a huge change, and I think it might even be a panel or two too much, because you can't you literally couldn't get to everything. Like there was a bunch of stuff happening at the same time, whereas in the past
I feel like they almost need one more room too, because like the gaming and panels at the same time was kind of in the same room. That would be my one criticism, that you felt bad gaming while people were trying to have a panel in the front of the room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean they did take, like, I remember the last year when we did this cast, the thing I was complaining about was the vendors not being like super central, and I felt like they were a little bit like in the corner left out, and they definitely they switched that room basically with the game room that was in the central location. So I don't know. You win some, you lose some.
It didn't bother me as much this year, as I really wasn't looking to play games until late at night.
Yeah, and I didn't I feel like I prepared more with like bringing my own alcohol this time, so I wasn't like too sad about not being near like the convenient bar.
Did they set up a bar
on the last day?
Oh, just the last day. Okay.
They did it for the dance to make it easier.
Oh, okay.
Did you guys all try a White Walker or whatever that blue thing was?
Yep.
Nope.
I did.
Was it good?
Yeah, it's delicious.
It was really good.
Yeah, I mainly ordered it just because it was somewhat refreshing when you're getting consistently dehydrated.
Just get more dehydrated.
Right, yeah. But at least, have some like lemonade in there to like pick you back up a little bit.
Yeah.
I only drink book-related drinks.
I only drink
So granted, this was at the after party, but how many people tried Watseka's moonshine? I don't drink alcohol, but I felt guilty turning her down because she looked like someone had shot her dog when I said no thank you.
Yeah, not too many people turn down the moonshine.
I mean, yeah, that's why, like, what you do there is you just, you take it and then just take it a tiny, tiny sip. Like, you just, because that's what I do with, like, the Skelly and stuff. I'm not taking a full shot of that every time someone passes it to me.
All right, Matt, you're last.
All right. So, yeah, no, it was another great year. I agree with John that they just seem to keep getting better and like reaching, this critical mass point. In terms of too much programming, I mean, you definitely can't hit everything. But I don't think it was too much, except for maybe, things were starting before I even got there on Thursday, so maybe they started a little too early there. But it is what it is. But yeah, it's kind of the adage we always tell to new people, where the second year is always better than the first, and it seemed to continue this year as you're getting more used to how to best maximize your time, and I'm meeting even in more and more people this year than the previous 2 years, and it's just a fucking blast. I think my biggest accomplishment is doing better at like pacing myself drinking this year. I think I did that pretty well. And bought a specific like mug to pour beers in so I don't have to pay for them. And yeah, it's just a great time. The musical was a highlight. Yeah, I mean, the only issue was the rain. Kind of we'll get into it as we go through day by day here, but the only issue was like the rain at night, which kind of spoiled some of the bonfire stuff. Although by Saturday, people were just kind of like fuck it, and we're just standing out in the rain.
It was fucking every night.
Right, yeah. Right, yeah, but like I missed most of Skelly night just because I didn't feel like walking back over there.
Yeah.
And ended up hanging out in the lobby of the hotel instead for most of that night. But yeah, by Saturday night, I was just kind of like, fuck it, we're hanging out there. And yeah, as John said, I was shocked to see you up at 4 a.m. on Saturday, John. when you were sitting on that couch in the cabin, I couldn't believe it. But yeah, no, it was just a blast. We'll get into more specifics here.
All right, so I guess we'll start with Thursday, and as typical travel logs go, I'll talk briefly about the drive there. I had a fabulous carpool road trip with Zach, Duncan, and Greg, and honestly, I could not have done that without Duncan and Greg, or Duncan and Zach, sorry.
Okay.
What did we do?
Shade on Greg.
Literally nothing.
No, Greg was actually much better than last year, so yeah.
Did he like prime you for trivia on the way last year or something?
Yeah, last year we did a lot of trivia. This year I feel like we just talked a bunch, which was great. So
Mostly he just said, I'm not going to do trivia. I'm not going to do trivia. I'm not going to trivia. It's too hard. And then we just did trivia.
Yeah.
And then
I don't care about
did
the
really
trivia.
well.
Yeah, trivia was much better this year.
I remember just as we took off, Greg we didn't demand, but he told us to pull over 5 minutes in, and he had to go and get something out of the back, and he opened the boot, and like a bag fell out, and he started cursing, and I just started laughing.
It wasn't even 5 minutes. We literally turned a street, and he told us to pull over.
So good. And he was counting the Cracker Barrels, I think, and sort of
Yes, we counted 10 Cracker Barrels.
Implying we should have pulled over at the next Cracker Barrel, and we didn't.
John would agree with you, I think.
But we got it on the way back.
Cracker Barrel's pretty tasty.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, we had it on the last day, on the way back.
Excellent.
Kalamazoo actually just lost its Cracker Barrel recently.
Oh no. But they're so good.
Well, there was first of all, there was a horrible shooting there. That didn't close it. But the fact that there was a persistent listeria contamination, the source of which could not be identified, ended up closing it.
Well, I don't think any of us have gotten sick yet.
Well, good.
All right, any other travel?
Nancy and I had a pretty uneventful trip down from Michigan, although the place that we tried to stop for lunch actually turned out to be closed.
Aw.
It was like we had stopped there like on the last Virginia year, so we were like, hey, we'll stop there again for lunch in Lima, Ohio. This place called the Fat Cat Diner that has this really cool sign. But now all it is a really cool sign because it's closed.
Make an offer on the sign at least.
It's not a bad point actually.
Yeah, no, I did the same thing. Found a random diner last year because I had to stop for gas, and so I stopped there again this year. It was great.
So the first panel was season 8 so far, and there was the pool party going on, which I don't know if any of us participated in.
I was amused of watching it from the top of the you know,
You're just looking down at the pool.
corridor was out there, just like looking at like Dom cannonball into the pool.
Well,
As I
Sweet.
walked by to the first panel I attended, I was like, all right, welcome to Ice and Fire Con.
I liked how they had the blow up dragon
Yeah.
pool toy.
I think it was.
Yeah,
I think
see that.
Shea
Viserion
brought
or
that. It
Rhaegal.
was so cool.
Yeah.
I saw that and wondered what I missed. But on that note, I got to run, guys.
Oh, sorry,
But I
Adam.
will. No, it's all right. I can only
Yeah, you-
hang out for a little bit. But I will say, like, the musical was definitely. I didn't even know that was like happening. I'll say that was definitely the highlight. That was so much fun. I like blasted Hamilton the whole way home. So.
Yay.
So good.
But yeah, it was great meeting you guys, and I look forward to listening to the rest of this. All right.
Yep.
Thanks, Adam.
See you, Adam.
Bye.
See ya.
See you, Adam.
Bye.
All right. So the first panel was season 8 so far. Did anybody make it to that?
I made it to that. I'm trying to remember who was actually hosting it. They all ran together at this point.
Yeah, I will say my one complaint about this year is that the schedule does not have like who's doing the panels. I think they
Yeah.
usually have that. It's a very minor thing to be complaining about, but that's my one thing.
Yeah, no, they announced it, you know, on their social media, like leading up to it, but like I never paid attention to it.
I know Tara was on it because she was on 2 panels, that one and the last panel of the weekend. Those were the only 2 she did. So the Queen Regent was there, and it was good, and it certainly entertained me. I had a good time at it. As I said, all the panels at this point have gone right through my brain, and I remember certain parts of them, but I don't remember which ones were in which panels anymore.
Yeah.
I definitely tried a little better this year to remember them, just because when we did this recap last year, couldn't remember a goddamn thing, you know, because of the alcohol and all that. But
I think we got there around 7, and I think we caught the last panel of the day, which was Good Guy Rhaegar.
good guy, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Did anybody...
Which had Lady Gwyn.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Did anybody
exciting.
have anything to say about the panels before that? Women in feminism, How to Train Your Dragon.
So the How to Train Your Dragon, which no one really knew what it was going to be about, turned out to be a guy who's, I guess,
it's Jim. It's someone or something like a lawyer on.
Who has a hobby of military history, and he basically was going over how you would actually use the dragons in combat if you had them, and they are not, and at least this he would use them, would not be anywhere near how they actually use them in the movies or the show, I should say.
Right. Yeah. I mean.
The most interesting thing, he said, they're way too valuable because the other side wouldn't have them, so you wouldn't actually risk them in combat at low altitudes. You would keep them where they could just oversee the battlefield and allow you to manipulate your troops so that you could be in better positions. And then you would, instead of using their strafing dragon fire against other troops where they could get shot at, he thought you would be far more likely to load them up with shrapnel on their backs and just be at such high altitude and then just drop them on the troops. The dragon fire strictly for basically wiping out empty fields that no one's in, so you could ruin their supply lines.
Ah, that's interesting.
Interesting. I think he forgot the psychological aspect of, people's non-ability to self-control just using a dragon.
Plus, Aegon's army was tiny at the beginning, right? He had to like win an actual pitched battle, I think, before everyone else would bend the knee. So I'm glad I wasn't there, I guess, at that panel, because I think I would have disagreed with the logic.
Well, no, yeah, right. It makes sense if you have more of an even side, but yeah, Aegon was forced to use them early because he was so vastly outnumbered. You know, it depends on the scenario. But yeah, it's kind of similar to the how like the later books of the Wheel of Time go, when the kind of like the crew of magic people start getting involved and they learn how to teleport, essentially create like gateways, and that becomes the most valuable thing in that scenario, to be able to just instantly like transport a mass of troops from one location of the battlefield to the other is much more of a valuable thing than raining fire down from above.
Spoilers, dude. Wheel of
Yeah,
Time.
whatever.
I might still read that at some point.
Whatever. Yeah, whatever, man. Sure, it's hit close to the 15-year limit at this point.
I'm just kidding.
All right, and then there was another panel called Name That Character's D&D Class, which Kev, who's also a listener of VOK, was on, and I caught like the tail end of that, so didn't get like the full thing, but I thought that was interesting as well.
Trin was also on there. She's one of the, I think, Behind the Iron Throne podcast people. And so, yeah, so it was just kind of a fun little discussion. It was heavily, audience participation, kind of a mix of kind of going over some of the basics of D&D, for people who had never played it before, and then kind of relating that to various characters that we see in the books. So yeah, it was a fun time, kind of a good, introductory type thing to the con and panels, and it was kind of fairly free form and heavily audience involved. So it was a good time.
What was Melisandre? Do you remember? What did they come down on?
I don't know exactly, because stuff blends together.
Warlock?
Well, but you can do a
It
couple.
depends on which edition.
Right. Well, yeah.
Well,
That is very true. That's very true.
I mean,
So yeah, was this 50 or first edition?
I played first edition.
Yeah, same here.
I would have said she was an illusionist, but
We don't have that anymore.
I know.
They're mostly focusing on 5e, so you can do things from one of the wizard classes, whether it be evocation or illusionist, or you could do the warlock celestial style, which kind of represents her patronage to R'hllor and all that, or you could do the fire cleric. So it all kind of blends together one way or the other.
and then we had the good guy Rhaegar, one with Lady Gwyn and Ashea. Lady Gwyn's from Radio Westeros, and Shea's from History of Westeros. And I really liked that one because it really delved into pros and cons of Rhaegar, and is he really this good prince, he is a prince, but Prince TM character that we all love, or is he messing up everything for everyone because he wants a lady? But I thought it was really well done. They definitely, you could tell they put a lot of effort into writing that all up, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too.
It was a really good overview of his character and the kind of contradictory viewpoints on who he is and his mythology, but also just the terrible decisions he made and why he would have made those decisions, and how much we don't know as readers. And I thought the questions were really, really interesting as well. I like the back and forth between the presenters and the audience.
Yeah. All right, and then we have, the rest of the night. I know a lot of people were doing the board game. Obviously, that's Skelly night as well. Any highlights anybody wants to talk about?
So this was my first time learning the board game, and John sent me a tutorial beforehand on video, and I tried my best, but I couldn't really follow it. So it was basically helping newbies to sort of get an idea of how the game played. And it was still a lot of information, but as we were playing it, I gradually picked up on the basics.
It is a complicated game. It is. Yeah, we had a number of new players this year, which was interesting and good. So always want more people to play.
Wasn't that the night where we met a bunch of you walking towards the cabin as we were walking towards the lodge, and then it just started raining on all of us?
Yep. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Anti-timing.
So
and
I
Nancy's
never
like, friend or foe?
So I never made it to the
Declare
cabins that night.
Same.
Yeah, just out of boring.
Right, and I held back at the lodge and the game room kind of because of that. I ended up going back to the cabins about 1 in the morning, and then tried to open the door to my cabin, and it didn't work. So I had to walk all the way back to the lodge to get it reactivated. So and then I got there, and there were a bunch of people hanging out in the lobby, and Eliana just kind of waved me over. So I ended up just hanging out there for another 2 hours. And that was kind of the general theme throughout the weekend, where That ended up being a thing at night where, in general, we would kind of have like a little powwow in the lobby for much of the weekend. Pretty much, Scott and Matt of Dad with Fingers were pretty much always there. And I, met some other people from that fandom, as well as, the Planetos guys and Trin and the Behind Iron Throne guys. And then the guy who made, on the highlight of the Thursday night was the guy who made the timeline of Ice and Fire that was released recently on the internet, had a printed out copy, and we just rolled it out on the floor, and we're just staring at it for, close to an hour, and awesome. Just kind of hanging out. And so in general, that was a blast all weekend, just kind of hanging out in that circle, at various times. I got some key free pizza out of it on Friday night, right before the musical, which was super helpful. And it was just great meeting, and that's kind of how I, met more people that I hadn't met over previous cons years.
So I liked the lodge. It was pretty sort of minimalist, but the bed was good and amenities were pretty good. Although we didn't have microwaves in the room, so there was basically a communal microwave in the hallway, which always had a line around it. So people were having little microwave powwows, which was kind of funny. That's cool. But my key card kept dying. I must have kept letting it touch my phone for a second. So every night at 2 a.m, I would try and get into my room and it would be locked. And luckily Adam would always be around the corner to let me in. But I even got a new card and it didn't work. So it was really weird. So I think the card was cursed, but everything else was good.
Yeah, I mean, that happens to everyone who stayed in our cabin at one time or another.
Well, yeah,
Matt just most spectacularly.
Right, yeah. It's basically when I reset mine, I fucked all theirs up, so they had to reset theirs the next day.
Which fucked yours up again.
Right, yeah, which fucked mine up again. So then when I went back to them that day, I was like, okay, I was in cabin 1. I'm sure this story's been passed around over the course of the day. Reactivate this card without deactivating everyone else's, please.
It was funny because the first time I couldn't get in, Aliana was from Girls Gone Canon was walking down the hallway. She was trying to help me do it, and she couldn't do it. And she's like, "Well, sucks to be you," and just kept walking.
That's on brand. That's very on brand.
Yep, that is. That's Aliana for you.
I love her.
I got more important things to do.
Yeah, which I can understand.
Yeah.
All right, do we want to say anything more about Thursday night at all? Skelly night, as per usual, I'm sure was good. I did not make it over there because of the rain. We've kind of already touched on that. So Saturday morning, bright and early, 10 a.m.
Friday morning. 9 a.m. Good Morning Westeros was Saturday. Are we talking about Friday morning or Saturday?
Friday.
Okay, sorry.
All right. I guess the 5K was earlier than that, but did any of us here do that?
They can't.
I think Scott did, but he's
I
not
heard.
here.
I know Alex did.
It actually was officially canceled, though people did it anyway because of how bad the rain was.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex didn't go.
He did not go, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought he did.
Did they all come back safely, or one of them?
No.
I don't know. We never heard
Why
from
didn't
them.
you? There was no one watching over them as they ran through the mud and beside a lake. Okay.
Yep. So we have basically 3 of us here. At least I know Duncan has done panels before, but I think for me and Dan, this was our first panel ever. And so we did a panel called Words Cut Deeper Than Swords. And Duncan basically guided us all through it. And I have to say, Duncan, super thank you for writing in all the notes for me.
That's okay.
But I had a really great time doing that, and I thought it was a lot of fun, and I got to talk about Sansa for a half hour. So
yeah, so it was I think it's the first VOK panel at Ice and Fire Con. I don't know if there's been any. Yeah, so it's pretty simple. We just listed out some of our favorite quotes and talked about it. Only went for an hour, but I thought it was pretty fun. I think I was pretty nervous beforehand. So I prepped some notes, but I didn't want to prep it too much because I wanted to have that kind of VOK spontaneous conversation. And we didn't have any mics. There was nothing really set up when we arrived. There was no officials to kind of help us get started, but we just dragged a table up and people started filtering in and we just tried to speak as loud as possible. And yeah, I think it went pretty well. And we recorded it on Casey's laptop, so we'll release that as a podcast in the future,
Yeah.
so everyone can hear it.
Have you like tested the audio? Did it end up working out well?
You can hear
Yeah,
it in the beginning at least. I haven't listened to it back yet.
No, I've listened to it. It
Okay.
sounds fine. You can hear it
All right.
perfectly. Yeah.
Yay.
I mean, some of the people asking questions are a bit distant, but you can sort of work out what they asked by our answer.
Ooh, my Mac is so powerful.
It is good. Well, lucky too, because my phone sort of died. The recorder died 8 minutes in, which would have annoyed the hell out of me. But thank you for being the backup
No
recorder.
problem.
Always have a backup.
Yeah. We know with our podcast
Yeah.
to always have a backup.
Yeah.
Okay, house words.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah,
have a plan B.
It was a really nice panel, and I thought you guys all brought really cool quotes to discuss, and there was just a lot of interesting points made that I didn't really think of in the context of all that stuff, and some stuff like that just was completely off the wall for me. I think from your quote, Dan, about Storm's End and like Cat like viewing it from a distance. I was like, this is really just a really cool description, and it spawned all these ideas in my head about dreams and all these things. So I really enjoyed it from my perspective as a viewer.
Yay.
Yeah, that was one that I never had, like I had never sort of noticed it before, I think. Probably because usually when you're reading, you're like, oh my god, shadow babies. You're still kind of shocked by that. So you're kind of reading to see, is another shadow baby going to pop out? Like that. But for some reason this time that really stuck out in my mind. And yeah, it was neat.
Yeah, it was interesting that you guys all selected quotes that kind of had similar themes, maybe, of dreams and kind of that dreamlike imagery that George is so good at. So that was really interesting how that worked out.
Yeah, and we didn't even mean to do that, but it kind of worked out.
Maybe we should have.
No, I think it.
That's be
It has
okay.
some
It just kind of works. That's
And I
I think it
appreciated the VOK sort of squad in the front rows that made it feel like there was an
Yeah.
actual audience. But we got some more people in the
There's
back.
actually a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of people.
I thought there were a good like
Yeah.
30 people. So
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I was happy. It was good.
yeah.
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
time of day, it was. I thought we had a decent crowd.
Yeah, exactly. I know that even on Saturday at 11 a.m., which was an hour later than your panel, it felt like it was like about the same attendance for a panel of that. So it was very good for early morning Friday.
Yeah.
Definitely have to thank my sister for warming up the pasties that I made and bringing them over for the end of the panel.
Yes.
Yes,
The wonderful,
that was
the wonderful
great.
meat pies.
Dan rewarded all the audience members with some free pies at the end, with an accompanying quote.
Delicious.
They were probably missing a key ingredient, but yeah, we got frey pies.
We think we hope.
The
5K missing people.
on the 5K. Yeah, they may not have made it back.
There they go.
Oh my god.
Oh
Perfect.
my god.
Dan was waiting at the end with the cleaver.
Yeah. Yes, right. Has expired at this point.
Cleaver and a wood chipper.
That'll do it. Yeah.
Fargo.
Yeah, anything more do we want to say on the panel? I chose 2 stanza quotes. I basically the last stanza chapter, or the last real chapter in Storm of Swords, and basically the Winterfell snow building scene with her building Winterfell and the imagery associated with that. And then also I chose basically that scene where the Hound is coming back, or Sansa's coming back from the God's Wood, and she runs into the Hound and he calls her the little bird 5 times. And yeah, 2 good scenes I felt. And Duncan, what did you choose again?
So I chose the scene of Dany alone in the desert, the Dothraki Sea, after she falls. It's her final chapter in Dance, after she flies out of Meereen and she's having all these hallucinations in the grass because she's so sort of sick and malnourished, and kind of links with her like psychological journey and what she's trying to figure out what she's going to do next and how she can find her way out of the desert. I had another Arya quote as well, but we didn't quite make that because the organizers had finally arrived just in time to tell us to get off the stage at that point.
Yeah, next time I want mics, but I think it went really well.
Yeah, no, it was good.
Yeah.
We fit everything in, I think.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to move on to the Snarking Grumpkins. scavenger hunt. Basically, for those that don't know, it's a scavenger hunt, and instead of like, accumulating items, we take pictures of things or scenes or whatnot throughout the lodge. And this time it lasted, instead of like, I think it usually lasts like 2 hours. This year they let it last like until midnight, to like make sure to get everything in, and so you're still able to like enjoy some of the things going on throughout the day, which I thought was actually kind of nice. I liked that setup. But this was one of my favorite things of last year, and I think it was again one of my favorite things of this year as well. I love like trying to come up with those scenes and pictures, and it's great to have those pictures for like to look back on and stuff, because we don't end up taking a lot of pictures ever.
That's what I love about it, is it's an excuse to take pictures, and in particular those incredibly silly looking pictures. Like, it's a great memory to have from the con, to have all those silly things that we did.
Yeah.
It's
And
almost like a weird form of improv
yeah.
or something, where we're like doing weird skits and taking pictures of them.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Just like running around the hotel trying to figure out scenarios we could come up with. Trying to like, because some of them included sort of like people you had to include in the picture, like cosplayers. So we sort of like pulling people aside and getting them involved in photos and trying to find props, and yeah, it was really creative and fun.
Yeah. But I think, John, did your team end up winning?
No,
Oh.
not even close.
It's a sore spot. Please don't bring
Yeah,
it
we
up.
didn't.
No, it's
we
not
didn't
a
get
sore spot
close
at all.
either.
But I'm just saying, we had fun with it. We weren't killing ourselves to win. But we did fine, but we did not win. Actually, I don't even think we came in second. I thought there was another team that came in second. We had a good time. I enjoyed it.
Do we know who did win?
I can't remember the name of the team, but they found 9 of the 11 prizes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there was, for those that didn't know, there were obsidian, quote unquote, prizes throughout they hid throughout the lodge that people had to pick up, and those were like worth, I think it was 10 points per parcel. So if you found those, you were definitely like, pushed ahead a bit.
Yeah, I think me and Zach and Alex went out ranging and basically found none of them and came back in disgrace.
Yeah, we sucked.
Yeah.
Not good. The one thing I'll say on the it being for the full day, I liked that a lot too. It was nice to be able to in the morning kind of do some of it, then go to some of the other events, and then in the afternoon when there was a lull, kind of clean it up and finish it. But my impression, based on what Chloe said, who was organizing the Starks and Grumpkins event, was that it seemed like a lot of people just didn't finish it, which I think is a thing that can happen when it's like this. You kind of just lose interest and don't have that kind of time pressure to get it done. So maybe there's a way to put some more pressure on people, I guess, to finish it. It's not that important. It's obviously for fun, but it sounded like not many people actually turned their stuff in.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Chloe, yeah, we didn't win despite the fact that we bribed the Lord Commander with 2 bottles of wine, some microwave popcorn, and some Vernors, which is a big deal to Chloe because she's from Michigan. So
I'm about to say you caused her to lose her voice, man. Like I was listening to their podcast today. She lost her voice after the musical from immediately like chugging bottles of wine and other shit.
Well, we just gave her the bottles of wine. We didn't tell her to chug them.
All right, so the next panel was the Great Empire of the Dawn, and I forget who did this. I think it was a bunch of dudes.
Well, it's mainly LML. I don't know who the other ones.
It was the History of Westeros people.
Yeah.
Okay, Aziz.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Aziz.
it was them. And the other guy that does the show stuff with him.
Okay.
I forget his name. That sounds really bad. Sean. I'll try to remember that.
Sean of House Beard.
Yep.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that panel, and I was glad that they actually had some new stuff that wasn't just in their Great Empire of the Dawn episode that History of Westeros had done. Because I remembered listening to that, and I kind of wondered if the panel would just be all a rehash, but they had come up with a bunch of new stuff, especially with LML.
Sorry, guys, I have to go in a few minutes, but I'll just say the musical was absolutely incredible. That was Friday night, I think.
Yeah.
The costumes are amazing. The writing was just hilarious and surprisingly moving at times, which surprised me. Like I was actually getting choked up a bit at the status scenes. And whoever played
Man.
Tyrion was sorry,
Lydia played Tyrion.
Yeah, Lydia played Tyrion.
Lydia. Yeah, she was incredible. I thought she was definitely the standout. And yeah, I could totally see that show. Like if they could ever figure out the copyright, I could see that like traveling around and making money. And other highlights were the trivia. I thought we did really well. That was really fun, including my terrible tiebreaker faux pas, which I'm sure you guys will mercilessly mock me about later in the episode.
No.
And also
Yes.
Casey trying to decapitate me during the melee
No.
was also a highlight.
I didn't mean to.
It's all right.
All right.
Yeah, all right. That's all for me, guys.
Curator.
Yeah.
Bye,
well,
Duncan.
Yeah, thanks, Duncan.
take another level.
Yeah, good
Thanks for having
morning,
me, guys.
Duncan.
Good day.
Thank you. I love meeting you guys. I
was
look
great
forward
meeting
to.
Yeah,
I
it was
look
great
forward to
having you
the
there.
Yeah, thanks for coming all the way from Australia, man.
Thank you. No, it was a blast. Hopefully, I can do it again some year. All right, see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
See you, Duncan.
All right, so I'm just gonna move to the next panel.
Right,
What?
yeah. I just need to mention because I was at the Davos Fingers meetup during this.
Oh,
time.
okay.
I didn't see it. Just want to say, it was great. Instead of doing a panel thing, we just moved all the chairs into a giant circle. And so it was just kind of a chat with fireside chat with Scott and Matt. And it was a great time. A lot of people in there, like we kind of had already met each other on Thursday a little bit. And so we're just kind of, having a chat is, especially because they're coming to the end of kind of all the published material. So they're kind of, we're throwing out ideas of, what they should do next to kind of like hold over for the year or two until we get wins. Knock on wood.
That's really presumptuous.
Yeah, knock on wood. I fucking know, but like, I'm kind of hoping for the 2-year mark on that at this point.
Did anybody do the not a fanfic?
I did. My partners from last year bailed this year, so that would be Nancy and Dan. So I did it with my daughter and Nellie. They did it a little differently this year in that you had two characters like you have before, but you also had a place and a genre. So of the type of movie you were supposed to do, or a story you were supposed to tell. So ours was Edmure Tully and is it a Shara Sea Star? No, Shiara Sea Star. Sorry, Shiara Sea Star.
Mm-hmm.
On Dragonstone, in a high school.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
So we basically turned Edward Tully into a loser stoner. And,
That's a fit. That's a good fit. I like
and
it.
Shiara Sea Star was a ghost because she's dead by this point. And,
presumably, not
She's dead in this
necessarily.
weird high school situation.
and basically it was like he was stoned, so he may or may not have seen Shiara Sea Star, who persuaded him to
By the seashore.
attempt to shoot an arrow and failing.
Aww.
So that was it in a nutshell. It was a lot of fun. There were about 5 entries. I thought 4 of them were really funny.
Oh, that's a good ratio.
And one of them was really, really lousy.
Sucks for that guy.
It's pretty tough.
That was me. I feel bad about that.
And so I never do that fanfic stuff. That was definitely not something I would be good at.
I forgot that
think.
it was happening.
Yeah, it was good. I liked it this year a lot. I liked it last year too. Dan and Nancy and I last year was great with Gregor Clegane in a comedic role.
That one was that was probably my favorite ever.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, sorry to skip out on you for that one, John, but I needed a nap.
Yeah, I think at this point, this is when I went back to my room because Greg was on the phone for like 2 hours with bookstore stuff, and Instead of taking a nap, I watched the woodchucks. We don't know what those things were, and cats outside our room. Who the cat actually jumped up onto our balcony, which is interesting. But we didn't feed them. But apparently, I saw on Facebook a lot of people did feed them food. So I did not make the storytelling and world building in Westeros panel. I don't know if any of you guys did. If you haven't,
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was like actual stories within the narrative and how that is used by George to world build. So that I didn't really know what it was going to be, but it was like, for example, like when Old Nan tells a story in the book, then how George uses that story within the story to build the world.
That actually is interesting.
Yeah, and how that affects, in Old Nan's case, how each of the Stark children kind of have that central story that motivates them going throughout the Song of Ice and Fire narrative, and it was a really interesting take on things. Being a big Old Nan fan, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really good.
that does sound like a really fun panel.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's on YouTube.
Yeah, I think I saw them say they're going to start putting stuff on YouTube soon, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, they definitely made a specific point to try and get everything recorded this year.
All right, and then after that was Cliplash, which I know a lot of us participated in. I found it really good and funny. Probably, I think the first year was funnier, but like it was still fun.
Did they change the questions?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had different questions from last year.
Yeah, I think as Zach said, everybody was going for the dick joke, and that was it. But
that's generally how it works.
Yeah,
I tried to avoid that and ended up getting 0 points liking me, and they chose the dick joke. So
Yeah.
I think I made the wrong call there.
Well, the thing is, right? Like, there's a good dick joke and a bad dick joke, right? Some are actually genuinely very funny, and some are just like, hey, dicks, you know?
Yeah.
Like my favorite one was like,
It's not wrong though. Dicks are funny.
yeah. Let me pull up my favorite. It does involve a dick joke.
Oh, you got pictures of this shit?
No, I'm just stealing from Ashia's Twitter.
Oh, okay. I need to check in on that. I haven't looked at that.
All right. So the question was, why did Lyanna Stark leave home? And the answer that got the most votes was dick appointment, which I thought was extremely amusing.
So that was the one repeat they had from last year, because I got that question last year. Which my answer was that good D, as I also went for the dick joke.
So I feel like my best one was the answer to Old Nan did some wild things in our youth, and I said wildlings because play on words, right? So
Yeah.
it wasn't fully appreciated, but I thought it was pretty good.
What did I put for that? Because I think I beat you.
I think I still won. I think no, you're probably right actually. I think you put the Knights King.
Oh yeah.
All right, fine. That's funny too, I guess.
Right. My favorite one that I did was what was the Night King's weakness, and my answer was the friends we made along the way.
That was good. That was really good. Yeah, that event's great. It's such a perfect game for a big group.
Yeah,
like that.
definitely.
It really works.
Yeah, as well as fits like the general personality of the con itself, like of all the attendees and like how we interact with each other.
So the next panel was about sigils, origins, and hidden meetings. I don't remember that one.
Yeah,
My daughter loved it. I didn't go, but she said it was great.
Oh wait, I think I left.
Unfortunate humor in that one, I thought, but other than that,
yeah, there was one pretty bad thing. But,
What did they say?
I'd prefer not to repeat it.
Okay.
yeah. Otherwise, I mean, it was kind of funny in like that way, where it's like so off the wall crazy. It was like absurdly funny, but yeah. Otherwise, I really enjoyed this one. They revealed information about a lot of houses that I didn't know at all, and I thought it was really cool.
I think I was leaning on the side of Thomas, and I left around after they said something about how there was a 5-year gap, and there is no 5-year gap, so I left. But it would be really harsh. But
Wrong. So wrong.
I guess we can lead up, go on into the board game tournament. If you guys want to give like a summary of like the whole thing right now.
So we basically had 8 people. So I just had us play the Mother of Dragons version, which is an 8-player version of the game, which features Targaryen and dragons. Basically, the 7 of us just futzed around for too long until the dragons got too powerful, and then we were destroyed.
Well, you were not to blame for that,
just
John.
like the books.
John came in late. He took over for someone that didn't, I think, come back from the musical.
From
so
after the musical.
John bears no actual blame for the rest of our misplays, but Scott played
very
Targaryens,
well.
and he played very well, but he wasn't really challenged, which is kind of hard because then, as John said, he just gathered strength the whole time, and he was able finally to swoop in with his dragons and win the game late. So good for Scott.
And this is actually the second time Scott's won in like 3 years, so
It's the first time he's beat.
Dynasty.
Congratulations to Scott.
How weird was it to have board game tournament without a mean?
It was weird not having a mean there for the whole weekend.
Yeah.
I hope he can make it next year because he's. I think he's very much missed.
Yeah, Secret Targaryen was very strange without a mean.
Yeah, we actually got through like 6 games.
Yeah, I know, you have to like, because yeah, like it ended up being like Zach having to like kind of take over and like doing a bunch of the talking.
So I've actually played a real game Secret Hitler a bunch, and just so everyone knows, we're far too kind in letting governments be formed. Because when I play Secret Hitler, you have a lot of times where you never can form a government because people don't trust each other enough. We're way too trusting.
Yeah.
We're all friends.
It's too friendly. We need to we need a mean back to make this.
But we're going into the next night now, but as far as Secret Targaryen's go, we had 2 boards going for a while. For a couple hours, we had 2 boards. So we had more people this year who participated than had in the past. So it was fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. It's always a highlight for me.
Yeah.
All right, so I know that you guys said that the real world inspirations of A Song of Ice and Fire was going on during the board game tournament or something like that.
Yes.
So I'm sure that was fun. Any highlights from the panel?
Shh. Just them shushing us, basically.
Yeah, they
Did they actually shush you?
They
yes.
came around and asked us to be quiet and stuff like that. Yeah.
I didn't even think we were that loud, actually, but it was not an ideal situation, and I think next year we'll figure something else out. But
I vote next year we make the lobby the game
well,
area.
I mean, if we could just bring a couple of tables into the lobby, quite honestly, I think that would be better than what we did. So
Yeah.
That would be a
I'm going
good
to talk
idea. I
to
don't
Tara
want
if we could just
Muggles.
get a table in there and just.
It's actually a decent point, John.
Well, I mean, being shushed is a problem. In the lobby, no one would have shushed us.
Yeah.
And that could also encourage more people to check out some of the games and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think one of my things I missed out on this year was I think there's always like a group of people that does like the Cards Against Humanity Westeros edition, and this year there wasn't that, which I didn't think about until like after I got home. So like I'm not like sad about it, but I miss it a little bit. Plus, like, we can play that whenever we want, really.
Yeah, but it's nice in person.
Yeah. Yeah, true. And then we have the musical. So I think it was a highlight for a lot of people.
I mean, I cannot believe they managed to pull that off with no rehearsals and basically recording their parts individually and then putting the tracks together. It's amazing to me.
Yep, Brian is incredible.
Yeah, super talented.
And on top of all that, we'll get to it like later. You know, still found time to like wrote a karaoke folk too, man, which was one of my favorites at karaoke as well.
Yeah.
I sang one of those. We were the first victims up there.
I think my favorite song ended up being like it was either Duncan or someone who said earlier with what they did with Stannis, and Davos for the version of Burn. Like it was so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, Brian
Well,
is great. I mean, I really like his take on a lot of the characters. So it, for me, really speaks to me. And a lot of like his Tyrion, his Davos, his Stannis, his Robert,
Yeah.
all those guys. It's amazing. If you've never seen it, it's worth the price of admission just for the musical, in my opinion.
Like, I can barely edit a podcasting while having a full-time job, and like,
Yeah.
I don't know how he can like write a musical on his off time. I mean, power to him. That's
insane.
really incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
And yeah,
hoping
and
for Gilbert and Sullivan next time.
Yeah, and just and it just also helps that like I feel like it's a con of only 300 people, and yet like the proportion of those people who are like just have like significant talents in just whatever in various areas, but in this case in like singing talents and other stuff is pretty incredible. And I mean, people like obviously Tara herself, like Dom is sneakily incredible.
He's insanely talented.
Yeah, like the secret MVP of the show.
Isn't he like
that's
Dr.
why-
Dom now?
Yes,
I
he got
think he
his
did just got his
PhD.
doctor, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's cool. And yeah, that's why I'm like hoping that they can find, because him and Shelby did the Phantom of the Opera thing during karaoke, which was like my other highlight of karaoke. And I don't,
that was really good
and
too,
and I don't think anyone got it recorded, which is a shame, because it was also very good. But yeah, but everyone in here, you mentioned Lydia earlier as Tyrion. I mean, the casting was pretty on point, especially the gender bending, and it's just, I don't know. It's just
adding
great.
Shay as a character was a great addition, I thought.
Yeah.
Especially.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was and in fact I don't like that song from the Hamilton musical itself. But it was great in terms of this musical, with Anna and Lydia pulling that off.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I love Hamilton, and I obviously love A Song of Ice and Fire. To see this mixing of the two and done so well, it's so good. And to echo what Matt and Duncan said earlier, I was genuinely surprised how moving some of the scenes were, how much emotion they were able to pack into some moments that really don't even have that same effect in the book, like that Stannis song with Davos and Melisandre. Just the way that Stannis was depicted in the writing and also the performance by Dom, it was really special, and I was lucky enough to get a chance to shower Dom with praise on how much I enjoyed that rendition of it. So it was great. Yeah, just so well done.
All right, do we have anything more on the musical other than it being amazing?
Nope.
Definitely 5 lemon cakes for the musical.
Yes, 5 lemon
Wow.
cakes. I missed half of it and I still give it 5.
Yeah, just wait till they post it on YouTube. Look it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it kind of, as I was watching it, it kind of felt to me like kind of how what is the Harry Potter ones, like a Harry Potter musical type thing.
Yeah.
I think it's mostly because her name's Daisy, I think, who played Joffrey. She reminds me of Malfoy every time I see her in the Joffrey costume.
Well, Joffrey in general reminds you of Malfoy.
True.
At least the way he's portrayed in the series versus Malfoy in the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah. So I think after that we had Karaoke Filks and the Stark paneling panel. I was there for both, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, so was I, and I can't figure out how.
Because
I think-
Stark parenting was during the board game.
Oh, right.
And I think the Filks didn't get started for a little bit.
Oh yeah, there was a little bit of a lull. They had to tear everything down from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I mean
karaoke is so good.
right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and the karaoke went it went until well towards midnight, like.
And we had a dance party.
Yep.
Yeah, a little dance party.
Yeah.
To end it. So yeah, no, It was great. I've already kind of mentioned my highlights, but those aren't even the only ones. I just rewatched. Someone posted on the Facebook the Wake Me Up.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, that was so good.
Which is just incredible. So yeah, I think Kat, that was Kat, Ellen, Becca, or who were doing that. Although I might be off on one or two of them, but yeah, it was it was so much fun. I mean, Brian's kind of ode to Jamie was very good, and also kind of like really depicted his sad and tragic tale, which I appreciate as kind of it's the same way I view Jamie as a character.
So many good filks that I haven't heard before, and some I guess were made up there or just made up recently, and they were really nice interpretations of
Yeah.
of so many characters and things.
Yeah, Nellie and I wrote a filk to White Christmas, and we did it just for this.
Yeah.
And we also got Duncan did his Quentin Lives filk, which is really funny and good. And Casey made up her own filk on the spot, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I was really nervous while performing it, but I did just like write it up in like a 20-minute thing. It's Billy Joel's "She's Only a Woman," and it's about Cersei, and I changed like 3 lyrics because basically that song sounds like it's about Cersei anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really fun, and I'm glad I last minute did it.
Yep. Let's see. We had there was obviously the Bohemian Rhapsody sing along. It's kind of
yes.
a necessary part of any karaoke sequence.
Of course.
Scad and Matt had their singing along. I forget what song they did, but
they did Grease, right?
Obviously. Yeah, that's right.
That was so good.
Yeah. So yeah, and that was audience participation as well. So a lot of fun. It's also it's probably a good point to just kind of show the spirit of Ice and Fire Con, where it doesn't matter if you suck. Like we're just there having fun.
Yeah.
And
it's so good.
Yeah, and everyone likes each other. And that's it's kind of like the theme of con, where it's just like the panels are secondary. It's an excuse to collect as a group and drink and hang out and enjoy each other's company.
Yeah,
and it cannot be overstated how nice everybody is, and just how open people are to just like hanging out with anyone and just having a good time with anyone, and just I don't know, it's really incredible.
Yeah, it's why that when you go there for your first time, 75-90% of the time you get hooked and want to keep coming back like we do.
And most of us are local and can do that.
Right. Yeah. It helps to be within a day's drive.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on Friday night? I know that I headed in like after the gaming was over because I was really tired, but I'm sure a bunch of people stayed up late.
Yeah, I think Friday night was our no rain around the bonfire night, though.
Yeah, it was. That's why I was there for most of the rest of the night.
That was my earliest night of the weekend, and I went to bed at 2:45.
Yeah, I think I probably did the 3:30 or something that day, probably. My latest night was definitely Saturday, which was I was out till almost 5, just because it's even though I was talking to people that night, it's like, even though you're super tired, it's like you go to bed this night, that's it. It's done.
Yeah.
Next day you leave for most people.
Not this year.
Right.
There were an awful lot of people there Sunday night, and Sunday night actually ended up going till 4 a.m. also.
Wow.
I cut it short at 3:15 because I had a plane to catch, and had to leave the place at 7 to get the plane. But I was told when I was checking out that they were there till actually almost 5 o'clock.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It was Matt from Davos Fingers who had to leave for the airport for Sunday morning at 4 a.m. So yeah, he just didn't go to sleep Saturday night. He was just hanging.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Just hanging out in the lobby, and then eventually, whatever his ride was, went to the airport around 3:30, 4 in the morning.
All right, so Saturday panels. I missed the first two of these. So did anybody make these?
So they put this. I must admit, I didn't know this, but apparently, the 9 a.m. panel was put in at my suggestion because I said there are some early birds who like early panels, and the people who were on the panel were hungover, and I must admit I overslept it myself. So I was about 20 minutes late to the panel that I suggested they have.
Oh my God.
But it was really good. It was just bullshitting amongst other things, and then the last like 25 minutes was wed, bed, or behead, and
Nice.
Solid.
an old Nan was on the panel. Cynthia, she always dresses as old Nan,
Yep.
and she is bawdy and funny as hell.
I love
Yeah.
her. She's great.
So she was there later than 3 because I went to bed at 4:15 and she was still going strong.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, that puts me to shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how old she really is, but I'm guessing she's in her 70s.
Power to her.
Zach and Alex were the more sensible members.
Well, I was still up at like 3 in the morning every night.
Cabin.
How is that not? Come on. I was tired.
Wah, wah, wah.
Well, I'm still recovering, actually. I'm still exhausted.
Yeah, no, same.
Yeah, I finally caught up today. Like, I slept 11 hours last night.
All right, so did anybody make the 9 a.m. panel, or did they make the 10 a.m. panel?
Well, I mean, the 9 was the one I made late, but
Yeah.
and the 10, I think I went and did something else at 10 that had nothing to do with panels.
Yeah, it sounds like it would have been interesting, like Death of the Other, what's the title of the panel. Just wish it wasn't at 10.
Yep.
Yeah, who has their panel at 10?
Yeah, I know, crazy.
See, but that's the point. You can do that on the Friday when people still have the energy. But
Yeah.
by Saturday, you've now run 2 days, on very little sleep. So yeah, the first panel I made was Jaharis and Alisan at noon that day.
Yeah, I made it to the cinematic influences of Game of Thrones, which was an interesting panel. I felt bad though; they just didn't get their cinematic part of it online. I think was the issue. I mean, like they got it off at some points, but it was hard to listen to them with that in the background. So it was really interesting. Some technical issues.
Yeah, I was at the Radio Westeros meetup at that point, and that was what you would expect. It's just Lady Gwen and Yoke Boy, who are now husband and wife, and they were just chatting and talking about their podcast. And
Extremely nice people.
Yeah.
Just to say.
So the reign of Jaharis and Alisane, I know Chloe was on that panel, and I forget who the other people were, though they were all like either small council or volunteers, I believe.
It was very good, obviously, if you Fire and Blood heavy, but very good panel.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I am one of the people that haven't gotten around to reading Fire and Blood in full, but I really enjoyed listening to this because, it's interesting hearing about them, and I have, like, if I haven't read the book, I have, like, heard about, like, everything about Fire and Blood and, like, the highlights and whatnot. So it was a good listen to, and Chloe is always funny with everything. So did anybody go to the History of Westeros meetup?
Yeah, I did. That was good too. But that ended up that wasn't so much on the podcast as just turning into a discussion about the books.
Yeah.
That seems to make sense.
I feel like a lot of like talk just turns into a discussion of like either the show or the books. All right, so finally we had the Tourney of Champions. This is where I accidentally hit Duncan in the face. I am still feeling terrible about that. I did buy him a notebook. He didn't mention that. And apologies.
Didn't mention that.
No, I mean, I hit him in the face and I feel terrible. But it was fun as usual. Basically, the tourney was set up. First round was the actual fighting with swords, which the name of which escapes me because I've
Melee.
Yeah, the melee. And it was like basically 2-on-2 this year, which I felt like worked a lot better this year. They had like a close quarter. I think they could have made it a little bit bigger, but it was better than like, I think last year there was like people just like running around everybody haphazardly.
See, I thought that actually made it worse because there was like, less strategies you could
Yeah.
pursue when they locked you into that little circle. So I
Yeah.
kind of missed all the weirdness and the people running around.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm just a viewer, so I don't have the context of actually fighting in the circle, but it felt way too small. It felt like you just kind of had to go at it, and it felt more random to me. Like you couldn't, like you say, Dan, employ as many strategies.
For me, it felt like the only reason I liked it was because I could see everybody and everything that was happening. Like, I think when last year when I was in the tourney, I felt like I couldn't like see what was happening like with the other two people, so it was making me super anxious.
I think just like a slightly larger circle.
Yeah, I think definitely it needed to be bigger than it was. I do have a bruise on my arm from the other girl that I ended up fighting after beating Duncan and his other opponent, or his partner. So it is like the swords are hard. It's not like,
Right.
with the next round where we did pool noodle jousting, which is kind of impossible to like figure out who the winner is of those. But all in all,
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
That's
yeah,
why
all in
it's,
all,
it's
just
more about
hilarious.
showmanship. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, that's part of the fun with it. I think it's the same thing along the lines with like playing paintball and stuff.
Yeah.
The kind of the minimal injuries you get are part of the fun.
Yeah. And I didn't break my arm, so no real harm.
The best part was certainly the
Yep.
large contingent of phrase that were repping.
Yep, that was definitely
Yeah,
the
I
most
was
entertaining bit.
Yeah, I didn't know any of those guys were gonna do that. So
Oh, really?
I was
They surprised
like,
you. Wow.
yeah. So I was like, this year I'm gonna do my thing where I'm gonna pretend to be a mystery knight, but then I'm just the phrase again,
Right. Yeah.
and it'll be a surprise. But it was I take off my cloak and it's a little bit of a less surprise when there's like 20 guys behind me chanting Frey. So yeah, that was Brian's thing. Like he got the hats made and everything, and
Yeah.
just
I mean,
So
just
funny.
having the banner there was great, and that's the thing. Like, I didn't even notice the banner or anything, like, until that moment like happened where they started cheering. So it was great.
yeah, Steve from Chicago brought the banner, I think.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And he cut down and he like found a tree branch somewhere and sharpened it for the pole.
Oh my
He
God.
had like this sharpened stake that we could stick in the ground.
So funny. But that's always a highlight for me.
Yeah.
The tourney. Anybody else have any thoughts?
No, it was big. Just thank you to Brian and all the people who joined House Frey this year.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
too popular to be a heel anymore, though. Everyone loves you too
Yeah, now
much.
you gotta be like Jon Snow or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got to figure out a way to manage Pasha because he's just breaking this whole tournament.
Yeah, that's why you need more. Yeah, that's why you need more of the chaos of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Pasha won 2 years in a row, didn't he?
Well,
He
no,
won
he
the
won the
joust
last
joust
year.
the first year.
Yeah.
And then he won the melee this year.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be allowed to play next year.
Yeah. The worst part is Andrew, who's now coming second 2 years in a row.
Yeah. So the next panel that I feel like started before the tourney ended was the Mighty Hand of Bloodraven, which was actually really interesting because I don't think about Bloodraven too much, honestly. I think unless you're a heavy like theorist, you're not thinking about Bloodraven too often. But it was interesting.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite characters to theorize about. I think stuff like the Great Empire of the Dawn doesn't interest me that much because it's too far removed and whatnot. But just because Bloodraven is still active like in the main story and especially in Duncan Egg as well, I find him fascinating. And yeah, this was one of my favorite panels of the convention.
Mm-hmm. John, anything else before you go?
No, I'm gonna say goodnight, and I had good time talking to you, and a great time at Ice and FireCon, and I hope to see you all next year.
Yep.
Night, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Same
Bye.
here.
John.
Same
Good
here,
night, John.
exactly.
All right, so after the bloodraven panel, we had the costume parade and performance, which is always a blast. There are lots of great costumes this year. I know that Duncan performed Drowned Man speech.
The Euron Greyjoy Kingsgrave
Right. Yeah.
speech,
Yeah, which was
great.
excellent.
He had a little eye patch, which was really cute.
I like that addition.
Yeah, I think I don't remember exactly, what all happened with, last year's performance thing, but I just feel like this year, like, every performance was great. There were no like bad performances.
Yeah.
Where I feel like that may not have been the case in the past, although I don't remember that much.
Yeah, the scene that, like, the little scene with Stannis and Davos and Melisandre, that, who was it, Eliana
and Scott
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the guy who I didn't know his name is Seth.
Yeah.
yeah, the one that they did was really, really good.
Yeah, mainly because of Seth. Like his his Davos was something else, man.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, his Stannis was something else.
Stannis.
Like, I mean,
He seemed genuinely like a theater actor.
Yeah, I'd
He
be
had
surprised.
that
It was amazing. I mean, I'm Team Dragonstone to begin with, but it was crazy how good that was.
yeah, he seems like a professional, and yeah, I think he brought the whole thing together, and yeah, it was. It's a good way for Scad to kind of like up the ante from what he did last year with the Broken Man speech. So now he comes in, does a whole scene. So it was a good step up for the sequel.
And I believe that was Victoria.
Yes,
right?
I believe
That was
so
the
as well.
winner.
As it should have been.
Oh yes, they won.
Yeah.
And so they are good stuff. Brian, Dom, and James did a hilarious video.
Yes.
To kick things off, which was
I guess
great.
It was from the Greatest
Yeah,
Showman.
I
I
guess
haven't seen the
it was
movie.
good regardless whether you got the reference or not. It was still
Yeah.
good, but
Exactly.
I think that everybody thought that they're going to be doing the Greatest Showman next year,
No,
even though that was a joke.
Yeah, they were. Well, they just they just like tweeted about it again, like saying like joking about coming next year to stoke those fires.
Yeah.
But whatever. No, that was
Great.
great. So we had Duncan. We had is his name Michael, who did the Floppy Fish song last year and did
yeah.
then when
Hot
they did
pie
their
one.
their hot pie this year.
And that was a big
Oh,
production
yeah,
too. There was
that
all
was
kinds
really
of
good.
Like people put so much into it. It's great.
Yeah.
And I got one of those little muffins. So
Nice. Yeah, no,
I didn't get a muffin.
I was like
I was
too far
offered, but I turned it down. Like
I
it was
too far
I
out
was
of
so
reach.
hungry.
Yeah, that was great. We got Duncan's, already mentioned, and then Matt did his. So for the Davos Fingles podcast, they do. Matt writes all the jingles for their characters. So before they do each chapter, there's a little jingle for whatever character whose POV it is. So he
I
did
like
the
that.
So he did the full version of the John POV jingle, which was great.
And then, after this is the group photo. I wasn't in the photo this year. I walked out and they were taking the photo.
that's okay. I'm never in the photo.
I've never been in.
No, I'm in the photo. I'm just not in the photo.
You're
Sucks to be
so-
tall, but not tall
You're
enough.
so
Yeah.
tall, but not, I guess, not enough. I don't know.
Yeah, not enough. It was tough though this year because it was raining outside,
Yeah.
so they had to kind of try to splice it together indoors, and it was kind of chaotic and stuff.
Yeah.
But hopefully
I'm
they
glad that-
get a good photo.
I'm glad it didn't rain for the tourney. I think it was like just starting to when we were going in, but rain was definitely a damper on a lot of the weekend stuff.
Yeah, I think it was like the only for me the only negative aspect of the con, and obviously
And out of our control. But
yeah, nothing you can do about that. It is what, and that's
Storm God.
yeah, and that's
Or
Should've
why.
done
burn a
more
baby
rain
or something.
dances. Yeah.
There's the belly dancing too. Or was that the?
Yep. Right. Yeah.
Yep,
They always perform each year.
Yeah.
That's always great.
Yeah, so after that we had trivia. We had 3 VOK, or a podcast of Ice and Fire forum groups. And they're basically, how they did this year was They had 3 games, each of which had 3 rounds, and one of the teams ended up winning by misspelling. Not salty.
I know that. It's so crazy that's what caused the tiebreaker. That's like, like it's like the same feeling of, fouling the like opponent on a 3-point shot when you're like a tie game in a basketball game.
I was hoping for quadruple overtime like we got last night.
Yeah.
But no, the trivia was really good this year. I felt like the questions were like hard enough, but not at naming like the 7 horses in Dunkin' Egg. Like, who the fuck knows that?
It was very doable this year.
Yeah. So the caveat that my group lost on, and Team Fire Festival won on, was what gifts did Dani receive in, when she gets married to Drogo. And we put that the 3 handmaids were Miri, Jiqui, and the other name is escaping me for some reason right now.
Durea.
It is Eerie, not Miri.
And it was a writing, it's a thing where I'm sure you guys said Eerie out loud, and Duncan just wrote Miri on accident.
Yeah, no. Sure, was it Greg? I think it was Greg's fault.
No. I mean, we can all blame it on Greg. I have no problem with that. But I actually I do blame it on Greg a little bit, because as we were walking to trivia, he was like, I want to get Duncan on my team. He needs to be on our team. He's really good. And I'm like, all right, we'll do what we need to do to get Duncan on our team. And that ended up being
it actually was a mistake.
Pretty funny.
Should not have had Duncan.
Although it was also funny seeing Dom's reaction when he realized what had happened. He's like, oh no.
But I also found funny that we both teams because it was a tiebreaker, we were trying to think of things and let's just put respect and any other show random thing that could possibly be a quote unquote gift to Dani.
That was really funny. Just the non-ending list of random things that could possibly count as a gift.
Books. Respect. Dancing. The reception. It was great. And I know that Duncan actually feels super bad about that, so I'm actually not mad about it. Just
it's not
about it.
But except to Greg, it's not serious enough.
Yeah, exactly. Only Greg is really
us.
serious about trivia, so he's the only one that might be a little mad. But
hey guys, my computer ran out of juice and I had to go find my plug. Are we talking about my wonderful trivia victory now?
Yes.
Yeah. We were just waiting for you to chime in on that.
Yeah, we were just talking about basically just finishing up the trivia thing. Do you want to add anything?
We won.
I know.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. So, and part of that is Kev is also sneakily really good. At the trivia as well.
Kev was definitely our most valuable player. There was a couple. There was a couple that I think he was the only one who knew it all.
Yeah, I think from what I could gather, I was not participating because I'm bad at trivia. But from what I could gather, Kev and Alex were the key contributors for the hard questions.
Yeah,
Alex just knew this random stuff.
Alex knew a ton. He has a lot of
and crazy is that the other team that won the other 2 rounds, where I think we're mostly first timers to the con.
Was it all book trivia, or did they do show trivia this year?
It was all book this year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, there was a gaming question.
Oh no! It was information that is included in the books.
Oh, okay.
It's just that it was a minor house that's only mentioned in the books, but happens to be very prevalent. It's the main house in the Telltale that your character is a part of in the Telltale game series. But the book is
House Forrester.
Yeah, Forrester. But they're listed, in the appendices and all that amongst all the houses and all that.
So I think after that we all.
I need to.
Well, Matt, you went to the
I
high
need to
tower.
just bring up the high tower real quick because that's why I didn't. Yeah, I came late to trivia just to see the end of it, but for that I was at the high tower, so it was so Scott was running it, and he had Matt LML and Aziz and B word on Twitter. I can't remember her name. Fuck. So that was all about the high towers. It's another one of those kind of random side topics I'm fascinated by. And so they were mostly dealing with kind of their history and kind of how they've managed to be involved in the Game of Thrones without being involved, where they kind of have their own thing going, where they're technically vassals to House Hightower, and yet they have so much individual power on their own because of the Citadel and of being the home of the religion as well, and kind of how they've managed to kind of survive throughout the years and kind of keep their influence over Westeros while not losing, not being too involved in the wars and the more destructive actions. So it was very fascinating, as well as kind of trying to figure out, what's gonna happen there with Sam's chapters and with the Ironborn invading, and kind of the most fascinating tidbit that came out of it was something I hadn't thought of before, which is LML suggesting that the high tower itself was built around something, and that there's some key thing that's being guarded there, and what that might be, and how that might play a role going forward. So it was very interesting to think about.
Yeah, that's another one I'll have to hit the YouTube on.
And then after that, I think we all got dinner, or most of us got dinner at that point, and hung out at the bar until the gaming and flea bottom feed, whoever went to whichever.
It's called. It's not feet.
It's melee also.
And then basically we wrapped up the night either gaming or fetting.
Not feeting.
I'm about to say for the third year in a row. Yep, still skip the dance. One of these years.
I don't think everybody did, right? Not everybody here, right?
No, I think
I was
Dan,
bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, Dan was there. I know John was there too. I left the gaming room to go visit and see where people were at, but then I just ended up hanging out in the lobby with everyone instead.
Yeah, for me, dances are cool and stuff, but the karaoke is that part for me, because there's entertainment value of people going out and singing. It's not just dancing to me. I don't know. I find that the more fun version of that.
If I got my Secret Targaryen fill Thursday or Friday night, I think I would have gone to the Fet at some point. But
there you go, you learned.
But this year I really just wanted to play Secret Targ, and I played Secret Targ.
Yeah, I was a little bit Friday was my heavy drinking day, so I was a little bit lighter on Saturday, and so I wasn't at proper alcoholic balance for just saying fuck it and going to the dance.
Yeah.
You were pretty toasted on
Yep.
Friday from the brief encounter we had.
Oh yeah.
At the end of the day.
For sure. But I still, I still balanced it well because I started drinking at 10 a.m. on Friday.
Yeah, not 9 a.m.
Yeah, so the fact that I made it to 3:30 is pretty solid. But yeah, Saturday night was great. Sitting around there, and in fact, it ended up being for a little bit. It was Matt and Chase just passing the guitar back and forth, and just playing what they knew as we were just sitting there listening. Great fun.
Oh, yeah, I saw something.
Yeah, Trin kept buying me free drinks, so I was chilling. And yeah, it was great.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that was the one night I ended up going out to the fire, and it was pouring, and I know Greg was miserable, but I think
gave him my raincoat.
Yeah. I mean, I was enjoying myself at the fire, even though it was raining.
Got to see some of that different colored fire.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was you missed it. It was Friday night, I think, where one of the people that does the the sword dance and all that, she brought out like her like fire batons and was doing that like during
Oh,
the
shit.
the
Yeah, that
bonfire
was
on Friday.
Watsika was doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was so good. Oh, that's who I never knew that's who Wasika was.
Nope, that's her.
Yeah, I always see that name and never met her in person.
Moonshine, sword dance, bonfire.
Awesome.
All one person.
Yeah.
I regretted how deep I drank from the Skelly on Saturday
Yeah.
night.
Right. Yeah. I'm always careful. I've never been a big shot guy, so I'm always careful around that.
Did any of you guys meet the dude from Boston who goes by Nips?
Nope.
I don't think so. I heard that name get thrown around, but but no.
Yeah, I was talking to him for a while. He's a character.
I can only imagine.
A name like that.
Yeah.
The last day was Sunday, and I think everybody here may have left before anything. Did anybody go to any panels on Sunday?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hung around until the closing ceremonies.
Okay.
Cool.
So we hit a couple things there when I was, somewhat recovered from the night before.
I made it to the, I was probably about 20 minutes late, but I did make it to the origin of the others panel.
How was it?
Yeah, no, it was fun. It was Emmett and LML. So yeah, it's pretty much everything I expected. So I had a good time. Although LML's style is not for everyone. But
Was that the only panel Emmett was on?
no,
I felt like he wasn't on many
I
this
think he
year.
did some stuff earlier. Although yeah, he was. I wasn't at one of the panels he was on, but I assume he was present for other earlier stuff that we missed. I think his presence on that panel helped as to keeping everything grounded enough and not getting too up in the clouds with it.
Yeah.
With the theorizing. So yeah, it was a good time, and obviously they're one of the few people I can confidently say know more about the series than I do. So
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Did either of you make the missing scenes panel?
Oh yeah, I ended up staying for that too. So yeah, it was Andrew and some other people, and was Chloe on that too? I don't know, but some other people that I haven't met before. So yeah, so what that ended up being was kind of things that the scenes that the show was missing, that left out that we would have liked to see. So
That was just an hour?
Yeah. Fucking A. And but so it was kind of and I think the key is that it was more upbeat. It wasn't. We're not just sitting there complaining about shit. It was more of about being positive of what we could have seen, and obviously a lot of humor as the con is based on. So I found it very enjoyable, and no one was overly negative and depressing. I mean, we're all fucking hungover at this point, at that point anyway. But, so we're just kind of like hanging out, having some fun. So I overall enjoyed it, and that was the thing I ended on, and I left the con after that.
Yeah, I was there for the Blackfire versus Targaryen panel after that too, and they brought a couple of things about Blackfires that I hadn't actually thought of before, so that was a good panel.
I would have been interested in that one.
Yeah. I feel bad because
Yeah.
I leave so early or it's an 8-hour drive really for us. It ended up being a little bit more than that this year, but these panels would have been stuff I would have wanted to go to.
The yoga.
Yeah, and the yoga. I want to do yoga.
Sean of House of Beard.
It sounded very intense.
Yeah, people are.
From what I've heard.
People
Yeah,
are
I
saying
heard
they
it
were
was
fucking sore.
I heard oh yeah, it's for beginners, but I guess not. Is there anybody that went to the What We Want from Winds of Winter panel?
It would just be Dan. Did you go to that one?
I think I did. It's all blending. It's one of those things that's all blending together in my head at this point.
Yeah, no worries.
Dan, what do you want from Winter?
Yeah.
A happy ending.
Okay.
I
Well,
want
We
the
probably won't get that.
I'm about to say a good repost that was like floating around this week is Brendan Beefish's kind of like primer for wins, just to kind of like as like where everyone is and where everyone's at to help keep track of that when it finally comes out and you're reading through and thinking about things.
Yeah.
That is a great resource.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the thing I'm probably looking forward to the most would be the Old Town stuff. Like,
yeah, me too.
What horrible cosmic thing is Euron going to do to Old Town?
Yeah, just all the battles in general, be they naval or land-based. It's gonna be a lot. I feel like it's gonna be similar to Storm, with a lot of things coming together.
That's one of those things that I thought was interesting, connecting it back to the con, was the amount of people who seem very optimistic that we're going to get wins relatively soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, in comparison to our forums, right?
Yeah, I'm just broken at this point. Yeah, so it was like, what? You're looking forward to it?
Yeah, but that's also it's because the people at the theme of the con itself is so upbeat. And everyone there is, in general, more positive people than I feel like some of the, the personalities we have on our podcast or whatever. So, it's just, it's just a
shade.
It's just a thing, and it's not shade. It's just,
No, I know.
Different styles. Plus you're like so high on the con. You go through that. You're thinking like, yeah, man, Wins is coming out right. You announce it right after the show ends. Yeah, it's gonna be great. So
George is gonna be there next year talking about it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
World Con.
And I think part of it is just because he's already, this is now officially the longest wait, in between books.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So,
it is. Yes.
I didn't realize it had passed.
Yeah.
Other than the first book.
Oh, it's way past it now.
Yeah,
right?
and so that's the thing. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like the 2-year mark, because like within 2 years, because that's when we hit the 10-year mark. Like, you gotta understand. Dance came out in 2011, so
wow.
Yeah, so that's why the personal thing I'm hoping for now is kind of end of 2020.
I'll hold out hope for the end of this year until I can't anymore, and then I'll hold out.
Yeah,
I think the end of 2020.
June.
Yeah,
well, I think June or July is the last they can announce a book to be coming out.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah, basically, if it's not announced within a month of the end of the show, it's not coming out this year.
Mm-hmm.
Because they would want to use the end of the show to help promote it.
Yeah. Because we're 2.5 hours into this, Dan, is there anything from the closing ceremonies of note? Not to put you on the spot, but you are the only one here that went to it.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Although, again, like I said, it's all
a blur.
It's all blurring together, Just everybody, sort of Tara got up and said, hey, goodbye. I remember Mihal was on the chat saying, did we get an announcement? When's it going to be, and where's it going to be next year? But she didn't do any of that at the closing ceremonies, so it was pretty much just, thanks for coming, goodbye, handed out prizes.
I feel like they should really do that at the beginning of the day, but that's also my bias, going on an 8-hour drive that day. But I would have liked it to be at 11.
Well, they have to recover too.
I know, but
Saturday night.
I got a House Karstark shot glass for
nice.
trivia team.
Oh,
Nice.
Oh.
Yeah, we all got shot glasses, so some people's shot glasses are hopefully in the mail.
Very cool.
But yeah, we can say so. As they announced it, with a day or two afterwards, that it's gonna be at the same place next year. It's 23rd to the 26th.
Yeah, it's the last full weekend in April.
Mihal can go this year, so that's great.
She's gonna be there.
Critically conflict with any major religious holidays.
Yeah.
I guess I can close out everything now.
Might as well.
Yeah. So next year's Ice and Fire Con, as we just said, will be at the same place in Ohio, Mount Sterling, Deer Creek Park. I think I said the right thing this time. It's really fun, and you should get tickets and come.
Absolutely.
And the show will be done by then, so we'll just get to mull over the book some more, and I guess talk about the ending of the show maybe. And
talking about
the winds of winter.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
don't cost nothing to be optimistic, y'all.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
Soul.
it does, because you just. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why I don't have a problem with it. I see.
Yeah, but I've already marked off my calendar for next year because obviously I'm going, and I don't have any religious holidays to worry about on my end as a atheist. But
Yeah.
That's one of the best things about that.
Right up, I find.
Yeah. People, the world will bend their schedule around me going to this con.
Yeah. But if you are going to any other cons this year, I know for a fact that me and Mihal will be at Con of Thrones in Nashville in July. And Adam also will be there. But I think Mihal and I are doing panels, so
Cool.
that'll be fun.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they want me to do like a lot, and I'm a little nervous, but it'll be fun. And also, I believe Duncan and a bunch of other Vassals are going to be at Worldcon in New Zealand. There is a thread up on that in the Podcast of Ice and Fire forums. If you are, near New Zealand or in New Zealand, highly recommend, because I think George is going to be there.
And that's next
Oh,
year.
is it? Is it 2020? Oh,
I think it's
I thought it was
2020.
this year.
I will say yeah. Apparently, like DC's like on the bid to do Worldcon in like 2021 or 2022 or something.
Hopefully, I'll still be here. But any other cons that you guys are going to after this, other than Ice and Fire Con?
Well, we don't have John here, but he's got like 7.
Yeah,
this is the only con I do. But no, the Facebook group for this con, people, they've been posting it like the past few days of like other cons they're attending. I think like Dragon Con's a big one that they go to.
Dragon Con is where Ice and Fire Con, I believe, stemmed from, if I'm not wrong.
Oh, okay. That's where it's where KK and Tara had the idea.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, all the cons are fun, but I'm excited for Con of Thrones will be the second con I've ever been to, so nervous about that. But Ice and Fire Con has definitely prepped me, I think, a bit for other cons. And then I guess I'll just close out. Thank you for listening. If you've listened to this whole entire thing, I don't know how long this will end up being.
20 minutes.
Oh, is Zach editing this? Oh yeah, this is gonna get cut down.
Yeah, thank you in advance, Zach, for editing this. It really helps me out a ton. Don't have time. Yeah, but you can follow us on the Podcast of Ice and Fire forums, or not follow us, but you can check us out on the forums, and if you have anything to say on any relevant topics, it's highly encouraged. And we're also on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram occasionally, and all the dating sites as well for us people that are looking for relationships. And thanks guys for sticking around for the whole thing.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Casey.
Yep, thanks, Casey.